On the 21st of January 1924, Vladimir Lenin, leader of the Russian Revolution and founder of the USSR, died. 96 years later, and Mojang released another update, and these two things are linked. Stay with me. It's 1870 in a place called Ulyanovsk, and Vladimir Lenin is born, but he's not born into a rich family, and since he lives in the Russian Empire, that means he suffers. However, growing up, he was interested in one thing: politics, especially this new thing called communism. Now, because he's a communist, well, he became a revolutionary, but he gets caught by the Russian authorities and is sent to exile multiple times. But he still dreams of making Russia a communist country, and that dream would come true. In February 1917, the King of Russia, Tsar Nicholas II, was overthrown, and although a temporary government came in, it wasn't really all too stable. In April of that year, Vladimir Lenin returns to Russia with the April Thesis, saying that communism will give peace, land and bread to all Russians. Peace referring to the fact that they were losing a world war, land meant equality, and bread meant food. Later on that year, communists launched their own October Revolution, and this time is successful, and Lenin becomes a leader of the world's first communist state. But before he can get started, he has to deal with a civil war that led to famine, which is quite a headache. And from all the stress and tireless working that he has to do, Vladimir Lenin suffers multiple strokes, and at age 53, on the 21st of January 1924, Lenin dies. Now, after his death came a struggle for leadership, but eventually Joseph Stalin comes into power after all of his opponents are conveniently missing. Innocent until proven guilty, I guess. Under Stalin's rule, the USSR began to industrialize. But just as Stalin is developing the USSR, in 1941 they were invaded by Germany. However, thanks to victories in Moscow, Stalingrad, Kursk and the winter, eventually in 1945 the Soviet troops enter Berlin and defeat Germany, and showing the world about the USSR strength. And in a post-war economy, the USSR emerges as a superpower, except they have a little problem, and that problem is called the USA, who were also a superpower, and just like the USSR, wanted to influence the whole world. So during the post-war years, they get quite competitive, and although sometimes in life
I'm too competitive,
this competition led to some incredible advancements in technology. In October 1957, the USSR launches Sputnik, the world's first technological satellite. The USA did eventually go one up though, as they became the first nation to reach the moon. And since the USA had quite a lot of knowledge on technology, it becomes more affordable, and small little computers start to exist. Stuff like the Commodore 128, a small little computer which allowed for stuff like programming. And because the USA's sphere of influence stretched to Europe, in a little country called Sweden, a kid by the name Marcus Pearson gets a Commodore 128 for his 7th birthday. And with this computer, he begins to learn how to code. And he loves coding, and in his adulthood, that passion only grew. And on the 17th of May 2009, taking inspiration from the game Infiniminer, Marcus Pearson creates Minecraft, which eventually released in 2011. But before its release, it had a lot of cool stuff added to it. Stuff like another dimension called the Nether, a version of hell with these ghasts, this ugly looking block, and the greatest thing to have ever existed. But as Minecraft grows in popularity, players thought that the Nether was a bit too outdated. And so in 2020, Mojang, the studio that was made to create Minecraft, announced the Nether update, which released on the 23rd of June later on that year, which revamped the Nether, adding more biomes, these guys, the second greatest thing to have ever existed, and removing the greatest thing to have ever existed with the worst. So that's how Lenin's death led to the Nether update. And if you guys like videos like these, like and subscribe, and share this with your friends.